If you'd grown up in the last of the good old days of old South Africa, you might recognize this religious poster that could be found in probably half the farmhouses across the entire country. I'll tell you the story behind it. This religious poster used to hang in my bedroom, in the house of my great-great-grandfather, where I grew up. It was, according to the legend, designed by an unknown Dutch or possibly German artist. It was translated and it was printed and distributed around the world in vast quantities, and so it's a very, very iconic, very recognizable picture in old homes, specifically in South Africa, but also elsewhere. So the poster is inspired by the Bible verse that says, "Broad is the way that leads to perdition, and narrow is the road that leads to life, and few be there that find it." And that is exactly what the poster depicts in such a big variety of ways. And there's all sorts of little Bible verses to illustrate the point. So here you see a table where there is some sort of drinking and jollification going on. There we have some romance in public and a sign across the Broadway's entrance that says "Welcome." And there we see a man abusing his donkey, and we see a banner proclaiming worldliness, and we've got a dancing hall where there is happiness and light and music, and we see a pickpocket stealing from a man, and a little bit higher on we see what appears to be a gambling table, and we see a poor sinner hanging himself from a window of a bank that says Solidarity, Spielbank. What is a Spielbank in English? I don't even know what it is in Dutch. There's some kind of a usury principle going on. There we see a lottery. There we see somebody chasing somebody, probably some act of passional violence. We see, I think, false preaching over there. There we have some highway robbery. We've got soldiers being led off to war. We see some slaves being driven along, and there we see more looting, pillaging, and warfare, and a train that hastens the journey, and eventually the road culminates at the gates of hell, where everything is burnt and all is lost, and it goes up in unhappy smoke. So that is the broad way that leads to perdition. On the other hand, there is the apparently less inviting narrow way, where a preacher is inviting people in by a sign that proclaims that it is the road to God's kingdom. There, a hopeless sinner is standing, probably feeling quite uninspired about himself and having to make the decision whether he wants to go on or not. Someone is trying to drink from the rock, where life pours from the rock, where the promise is drink from the rock and you will get peace and everlasting life. There we have all sorts of obstacles along the way. The narrow road, not as exciting at all. We have a building proclaiming that it is a Sunday school, and instead of grand edifices, we have a tent along the way. We have a children's home or an orphanage, so there is some charity in motion. Another church, it seems. Bridges are gone across chasms. It is a hard and difficult road, definitely not easy to follow, and definitely not without its dangers, as we can see over here, where a lion is attacking some religious converts, Christians, pilgrims along their way. Obviously some persecution, and the narrow winding road goes uphill all the way, but look where it culminates. It culminates at that grand and wonderful eternal city, presumably an image of the New Jerusalem, which is the ultimate goal of all Christians. And so this was often hung in old homes to remind Christians that at any given time we're always faced with one of two choices: the broad way that leads to death, and the narrow way that leads to eternal life and happiness. It's always a choice, and this is how our forefathers were guided to make their choices, always reminded that fun and games lies on the left, more difficult, complicated times on the right. The negative destination on the left is the end result, while the wildly wonderful destination awaits the patient pilgrims who stick to the program.